Hi, my name is Parkson and welcome to another special edition of Ordinary Fathers. In case you do not know, today is World Mental Health Day. World Mental Health Day is observed on 10th of October every year with the overall objective of raising awareness of mental health issues around the world and mobilizing efforts in support of mental health. Mental health is so important because it affects every part of our lives, our performance at work, at school, the quality of our health and our relationships, and more. That's why it's so important that we learn to take good care of it. Today, we will be focusing on teenage stress and what parents can do to raise a resilient teen. And just to be clear, a resilient teen is not one who has no stress, but one who has the necessary skills and resources to manage stress well. And to help shed some light on this is my guest, Charmaine Ng.
Hi,
Charmaine is
good
a clinical
morning.
psychologist currently working with Zenith Medical Center. She was with the REACH, which is a community mental health team at NUH, helping school children between the ages of 7 and 18. And so she knows what she's talking about. Good morning, Charmaine, and thank you for taking the time to join me on Ordinary Fathers.
Thanks, Paxton.
Yeah, how are you this morning?
I'm good. It's really nice weather today.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's a nice, cool weather this morning, so that's a good time to have this discussion. During your time at Reach, you must have seen many school children coming to you with all kinds of issues. How
Yes.
common is stress? One of the issues that these, school children experience.
Wow, that's a good question. It's very, very common. Everybody will come in for some kind of stress-related issue, whether it's their studies, whether it's anxiety, depression, or just adjusting to different transitional stages in life.
Wow, so it's quite common, huh? But what are teens feeling stressed about nowadays? What are the different sources of their stress? Can you kind of shed some light on that?
Yeah, I can. And actually, we've thought about some of the categories of stress that occur. Actually, there are so many. I'm sure, as you all know, there are many, many, many. But we've categorized some of them for you today. In many ways, a lot of things have not changed. The things that we were stressed about as teenagers still stress our teens today. Things like our responsibilities to our studies, thinking about our future, and things like identity formation. These are all intrapersonal issues, so things that affect us within the self. So identity formation is basically figuring out who am I, what is my place in the world. And I'm sure a lot of us have experienced this as we are growing up, and maybe some of us are still figuring that out today. Um, yeah.
Okay.
There's
And
also, sorry,
environmental challenges.
yes, also environmental challenges. So this is something a bit more unique to the current generation in terms of navigating the digital world. So when we were growing up, we didn't have social media, we didn't have the internet as readily available. So what we might see nowadays is that social media tends to amplify social movements and trends. It can be really tricky to try and keep up with stuff and find out about all the different things that are happening. On the other hand, it also makes it a lot easier for you to find your tribe, the group of people who you identify with the most. But some of the issues that I think teenagers will struggle with today are things like dealing with false or embellished information. So stuff like impossible beauty standards, or even I was reading recently about how a lot of these influencers will book out studios and rent fashionable designer items to pretend and look like they have a trendy lifestyles and make people hanker after these things, but actually they are not real. They are not a part of someone's actual lifestyle. And I think having access also to a lot of information about the world can make teenagers feel very stressed when they learn that, hey, there's this thing called climate change. There's a lot of upheaval around the world. These are things that they will find out more readily because they have access to the internet and social media. And finally, also, I think one very real concern that a lot of parents have is exposure to harm, such as scams, bullying, cybercrime, and also for the younger kids, exposure to adult material that's not appropriate for their age. Yeah.
On the ironically, I think parents seems to be more stressed about their children's use of the internet and digital media devices and all that. Our children seems to be what we call internet natives,
Yes.
digital natives. But yes, I think parents should not underestimate the fact that even using the internet and social media, for example, can be a source of stress. There's this thing about comparison, catching up with the Joneses and things like that. And as you mentioned, cyberbullying, these are also very real. And sometimes our kids do not tell us about it, but they try to manage and cope by themselves. Yeah. So
Yeah, absolutely.
what can parents, what should parents look out for in their teens to that kind of as telltale signs, indicators that they might be stressed? I mean, besides asking a question, are you stressed?
Yeah, actually, that's a good question also because I think asking them, are you stressed, is likely to get a half hearted answer. Sometimes teens may not always be prepared to respond so quickly about to such a direct questioning. Some of you may find also that your children might be quite tight-lipped when you ask them more direct questions. Um, when we think about our own stress, our physical, emotional, mental, behavioral experience of stress, our teenagers are going through exactly the same thing. And so for some of them, what are the common signs? Irritability, social withdrawal. And some of you might say, my kid is always like this, they're always grouchy, is slightly withdrawn, they don't like to talk to me. So the difference really between typical uh, teen irritability or, being a bit more withdrawn is looking at their functioning. How much is the stress affecting their daily life? Are you observing any changes in their behavior in school, the studies? Are they doing the things that they normally do, or are there some changes like no longer doing things that they like to do, or suddenly like their behavior has changed a lot? It's things like this, and it will vary from individual to individual.
Yeah, but I think what you're saying is look out for drastic and kind of abrupt changes in their behavior and patterns, and I guess also not to conclude that your child may be severely stressed or maybe to the point of depression, but at least let that be a signal to you to begin to pay a bit more attention and maybe to be a bit more curious and inquisitive and be concerned. Am I right?
Yes, yes, that's right.
Yeah, we should not
Yeah.
jump. I mean, for parents, we should not, push the panic button too quickly. Otherwise, our overreaction can also irritate, our teenagers, and that might cause them to withdraw from us even more.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
So,
think one, yeah,
mm.
sorry.
so when parents do see some of these signs, what can they do?
Hmm. Actually, before we're going to go into that, I wanted to add on just now that some kids, right, they are very, very capable. They are very smart and high functioning. So they may not show many signs until things become much more severe. And on the one hand, yes, having a typical amount of stress in your life is very normative. On the other hand, stress can also be quite easy to hide. So, in talking about what parents can do, which we will show a bit more on shortly, is to focus on relationship building and trust so that when the time comes, you will be the person that they go to when they are feeling stressed. Um, what else can parents do? Was that your question? What else can
Yeah,
parents
what
do?
else can parents do?
Okay. Actually, maybe can we talk a little bit more about what's on the next slide before we conclude with what more parents
Sure.
can do? Um, so this one is to kind of draw a little bit of a picture about stress, so we really understand it a little bit more. Um, sometimes stress in our world can be quite glamorized, right? That I need to be tortured before I can get a award. This is hardworking. But actually, there are three different levels of stress. We start off with positive level stress. You might see a mild increase of stress hormones, and this could be an event, for example, like first day of school or speaking in public. And you can see as well on the left-hand side, the size of the box indicates the coping. So at this moment, stress is not quite high, coping is still manageable. On the other hand, in the middle, we have the moderate amount of stress. It's like tolerable, buffered usually by support. So your capacity to deal with stress is supported by the amount of resources, maybe social support that you have around you. And you notice more adrenaline production in this state. It's also temporary. So it's like the little burst that you get when you have urgent work, deadlines, or exams. Now, the final one is the one we want to worry about. So you see the box is the smallest one. This is where the capacity to cope is overwhelmed and usually occurs when there's prolonged activation of the stress response system. So this has adverse effects on the physical body because you can't be in this production of stress hormone state for very long. It starts to cause a lot of physical um, challenges and also mental challenges. And this is the level of stress that we want to worry about because it's where people most at risk of developing mental health conditions like depression, like anxiety. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're seeing here is that actually different types of stress. The positive one, the green one, is the normal stress that we experience practically, every day. I mean, life is stressful in general, but
Yes.
they may not be harmful. I mean, certain level of stress is good to kind of keep us on our toes, and keep us
Yeah.
alert and things like that. It puts us in an alert position to either, do some things and act on it. And then there's a
Mm.
tolerable means these might be a little bit more stressful things, but because they're tolerable because we have the resources and we also have the social support network like our parents and our friends who
That's right.
encourage us and who gives us some tips on how to do certain things. But when these stresses are prolonged, and when a person lacks the resources, the coping strategies, or the social support network, then they become toxic. You see, and that's that will be harmful to the health, harmful to relationships, and harmful to our mental health as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
what can parents do when they discover their kids are extremely stressed or quite severely stressed?
well, this is the million dollar question. Thankfully, there are things we can do. First of all, we can do what all parents do. Do your job as per usual, support their general health. So things like sleep, diet, exercise, leisure time, these are all things that we need. And helping to maintain these will increase your capacity for coping. Things like social needs as well, spiritual needs, these are the things that also tend to get neglected, especially during times I've noticed, exam times, or you're not allowed to go out, you're not allowed to do this, which is understandable. However, that doesn't mean that these needs have completely gone away. It's just that at the time, they might have to be some sacrifices might have to be made. Nevertheless, it's important that we acknowledge that there are these needs aside from the usual health stuff. And sleep is also quite important. We are finding this a big issue, especially with all these digital devices that are interfering with not just our children's sleep but ours as well.
Mm.
Um,
And
so
Singapore
on,
is actually the most sleep deprived nation in the world, according to some reports.
yes, I'm not surprised. Everybody who comes in to see me and I ask them, "How is your health?" It's usually pretty bad. This is something we struggle with, I think, very, very commonly. So if you do, you're not alone. Okay, the other thing I think that would be really helpful, something we touched on a little bit earlier, is having a supportive relationship with your child. So at this stage, okay, in their lives, you are finding that they are becoming more independent of you and starting to put more weight on their peer relationships. This is very normative. This is part of the growing up.
Mm.
However, that doesn't mean that our children don't need us anymore. So we start to play a safe harbor role, which means that they go out into the world, they explore it, they do their thing, but then at the end of the day, they will come back to you who are the safe and secure harbor where if there's anything that stressed them out, things that they have questions about, they can always go back to you and talk about it in a safe environment. How can we develop the safe environment is something that we call holding space. So this is taking a non-judgmental approach to listening to our teens, to validating the things that they have to say, without rushing in to give advice. Of course, I'm glossing over this quite a lot, but if you look at the term holding space, validation, non-judgmentalness, you'll find a lot of resources on things that you can do or what exactly this means. Yeah.
Mm.
And then,
I think it's also important that parents do not trivialize their teenagers' emotions and experiences, by saying things
yes,
like, oh, you're having it easy nowadays. When I was your age, things were much tougher, and we didn't have this and we didn't have that and things like that. And that
yes.
makes the child think, oh, maybe my problem isn't that such a big deal. Maybe I should just
Mm.
bite the bullet and push through. Yeah, so that's something we need to be aware of also.
That's right, because at this stage they are also learning what are things that I should react to, what are things I should not react to. So our responses will really give them feedback on what is important or not. So things like saying, no, lah, I don't think like that is probably going to shut off communication because they will think your teen may feel that this is rather invalidating and maybe I might not want to bring it up because I will just get dismissed. So don't be too quick, yes, to dismiss, right? Allow them to share and consider that their experience, even though you may not agree with it, could be just as valid for them and real.
Mm. And I guess at this stage of teenage adolescence, our children will tend to gravitate towards their friends more than to their own parents. And but I think that bothers a lot of parents, and parents will begin to say, my children don't talk to me anymore. So what's
Yeah.
happening? Can you help us understand what's really happening here?
Oh, I guess sometimes this can be a challenge because every family has their own dynamics and way of communication, and I think that intergenerational differences are as old as humanity. But it is very normative for teenagers to not talk to their parents about certain things. Um, Maybe because they are thinking about it, maybe because they are not quite sure if they want to talk to their parents about it. But the supportive relationship is really something that I encourage, even from a very young age, to buffer against this concern, to encourage them to feel safe and comfortable with talking to you about even the most difficult topics.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so important, huh? Right.
Yeah.
And also not to be shy or feeling the stigma of approaching external or professional help. I mean, the word help is SOS is a very, very important word.
Yes, yes. Actually, I also put the word external there because, you know, you know that we have the saying, right, that it takes a village to raise a child.
Mm,
So, whether you're married, whether you're a single parent, everybody will need a helping hand to look after their children. Because on the one hand, as they get older, you might feel the bad news is that you're not as responsible for your child as you used to. However, the good news is also that you're not as responsible for your child as you have to be because there is help out there for you. There is, other people in your community, um, people like myself, counselors, psychologists who offer professional support. And also, there's a myth about going for counseling, going to see a therapist, that you need to be in extreme suffering before you get help. We help people at all levels. Any kinds of questions parents might have about parenting, behavior, day to day stress that you need a little bit of extra help. Definitely, psychologists and counselors and all of us can help with these kinds of things.
mm, yep. Yep. I think it's always good to have somebody to talk to. If you can't talk to your parents, you can talk to your friends. If your friends are not helpful, you can always seek someone else, a teacher, a school counselor. Now every day, every school today has a school counselor of sorts. So I think
That's
that can
right.
be kind of a go-to person, at least for a start.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else can parents do?
Well, I think one very important thing that often gets missed out is parental self care, looking after yourself. So, on the one hand, okay, there's the marital relationship because with your spouse, they are really your greatest ally. A lot of the times when life gets busy, when you have children to look after, when you've divvied up the work, the marital relationship is often the first to take a hit because you've got so many responsibilities. But at the end of the day, right, they are really the best person in the same because in exactly the same position, with the same children, and they live with you in the same house. So hopefully, for most of us, we have a good marital relationship or supportive marital relationship that can help provide that support when things are not going well. To discuss it with them, to receive that support. This is part of caring for yourself. There are some of us who may be single parents. Don't fear. As I mentioned earlier, teenagers need their tribe. So do you. All of us need to find our tribe to play these important support roles. No man is an island. We all need somebody to help us get through all of these very challenging life stages.
Mm. Well, all these are very, very useful tips. Thank you very much. If parents have more questions, how can they reach you?
You can send me an email. Yeah, there it is on the screen. I'm going to try and see if I can answer some of the questions on the Facebook page if there are any. But if not, then that's all right. You can find me at this email address.
All right. Okay, so we have actually quite touched on quite a lot of ground today on teenage stress and what parents can do to help them cope. So I want to thank you, Charmaine, for taking the time to spend with us and on sharing from your experience and your knowledge, wealth of knowledge about what parents can do about this. And so I hope you all wish you all the best in your career, and hope that you really are able to touch many lives and help many people be more well balanced and wholesome in all sense of the word. All right.
Thank
So
you
have a
very
nice day.
much.
Have a great weekend to you.
You too. And all of you out there, stay safe, take care.
All
Thank you
right.
for
Have a
tuning
nice
in.
day. Mhm. Bye.
Bye.
Well, today we have heard from Charmaine about how parents can help their teens cope with stress. And I just want to reiterate what Charmaine said, that one of the things parents can do to help mitigate teenage stress is by providing a safe haven at home. And you can do this by making sure that your marriage is strong and by synchronizing your parenting approach. Very often parents have different parenting styles, and that causes conflict between the parents, and that kind of ruffles feathers at home and creates a tense atmosphere at home, and that affects the well-being of the child and teenager as well. Now, Center for Fathering has the workshops to help you in both these areas. First, there is the I Can Parenting Teen Workshop that you can check out. We have the Parenting Teen Workshop that you can attend. Both father and mother can attend, learn the skills together, and begin to put them into practice. And then we also have the Marriage Workshop, which is known as the 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. All right. So these are the websites that you can go to sign up, to learn it, to improve your marriage and improve your ability, your skills in helping your teen cope with stress by creating that safe haven at home. I'll be your trainer for both these workshops, and I hope to see you there. Well, this has been another special edition of Ordinary Fathers. Thank you for watching. Till the next time, this is Parkson signing off.